Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Secret Invasion Promises. And I really enjoyed this episode because there was a lot of things that happened and went on, and we got more details about this invasion and everything that's going on, because in the beginning we're thinking, oh, we've just got a couple of Skrulls that we'd have to deal with, maybe like a couple hundred out of a couple thousand. We learned that that's not entirely the case here, and that it can be bigger and definitely farther spread than what we've seen. And the thing is, we start off the episode pretty much having a recap of 1995, seeing Fury's kind of interaction with the Skrulls and everything like that that happened within the movie Captain Marvel. Then we go to 1997 in London, and we see that Talos is pretty much bringing up the rest of the kind of Skrull group that Fury knows of. Fury gets introduced to Gravik, who was a child at that time and was deep behind enemy lines and somehow was able to get to a spacecraft himself and pilot himself to safety to Earth. So Gravik definitely has the skills to... he has survived crazy shit from the Kree. So him being able to do the kind of stuff that we've seen so far in the show, it's just adding more layers and understanding to it, and also seeing him kind of figure out what's going on with Fury. Of course, we see him with the eye patch and everything. Talos is thanking the people for coming, and that he then introduces Fury. Fury's like, listen, me and Carol Danvers, we're going to do our best to find you guys a new home. And all we ask in return is that you help us protect ours. And that's kind of setting up the whole kind of promise that Fury has made, and that Talos was pretty much trying to keep him to actually doing, and why Gravik and the rest are so pissed off. It's taken 30 years. Now granted, there's been ensuing crazy shit going on, and hopefully we get more into why Fury has been holding off for it, because it seems that a lot of people, like a lot of Skrulls, volunteered to pretty much do this, mainly adult ones. We do see Gaia and Gravik kind of looking at each other, and that they don't do their stuff right off the bat. Granted, it would be harder for them to be Skrull infiltration kind of units as children, unless you like got rid of the target's kids and utilize them. It's a very iffy proposition for that kind of thing, but it's setting the groundwork for the understanding of the promise. And then we start kind of dovetailing into starting with Fury and Talos, and then kind of moving on between certain other kind of aspects. So let's go there. We start back in Moscow. We see some dude grab Fury and put him in a van. We see someone grabbing the Skrull agent for like Americans Against Russia and put them in a van. But we see that Talos has gotten Fury and pretty much gets him on a train and is able to throw off the guards as they're doing stuff, and like trying to, of course, like search the train for Nick Fury. And it's funny because Talos is pretty much speaking and like, you'd have a better chance finding an alien than him, and he is an alien. That was a good little line. But then we see that Fury is talking about his childhood, and this is nice because then it sets up where we kind of get our kind of information later on in this conversation. But talking about how him and his family would be on this train, and of course it would be a colored section, and that they wouldn't be allowed to go to the dining cart, so they would take food with them and everything, and introducing this game, Tell Me Something I Don't Know, and that his mother would question him about Susie, and that they had a long-standing game of doctor, and that Fury decided to lie to his mother about it, and even though he lied about it, his mother got information from that lie as well. It just goes to show how, even though it's a kind of weird little anecdote where people will be like, what does this kind of like do? This sets up and gives us kind of an understanding of Fury. It gives us information on him, while he's also trying to get information out of Talos. Because he's like, listen, even though this person lied to me, like, for his mother, his mother got the information that he needed, because instead of saying that he did that stuff, he just lied through his teeth and said that they both saw a like polka dotted frog. And then he's like, all right, Talos, tell me something I don't know about Skrullos and like what happened there. He's like, all right, tell me about the refugees. And then we get the bombshell that it's not like a couple hundred thousand Skrulls. It's a million Skrulls. Pretty much all of them that didn't go to Emperor Doge's or Droge's. I'm like, who? And I'm trying to like piece together certain kind of stuff because I'm not as well versed with Skrull lore, except in the instances of like Empire, of Hulkling being the new Emperor, uniting the Skrull and Kree empires in the comic books. But that he brought all of them there, and Fury's like, holy fucking shit. He now understands this, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. At first, I was thinking, okay, this would be kind of like a sleeper cell cat and mouse, kind of keeping it kind of a smaller kind of affair. But this has gone to like, ooh, okay, bigger kind of things, and then we also kind of learn about that stuff with Gravik and everything that kind of gets detailed with him. He's like, you needed to tell me this. And he's like, you were gone, and you were changed. You didn't really come back to Earth that much. And Fury's like, one valid point. Then Fury's like, you could have told me any time. This is big fucking information that people need to motherfucking know. And Fury's like, you know what? I think this is your stop. And Talos leaves, and Fury then goes on. It's like, that introduces a lot of kind of things, especially when we then see who the Skrull Council is and kind of how they do their kind of thing. We then see that Fury has gotten to London, or I think it's London, or England, and we see that Maria Hill's body is being taken back to the US. We see that her mother's there, Elizabeth, and Fury comes and she's like, they're telling me that the nation owes a great debt and everything. They won't tell me a damn thing about it. And Fury actually tells her everything. See, the thing with Fury is he doesn't just spew shit. If he loses an advantage or any kind of important piece of intelligence, he will hold it back until he needs to talk about it. Here, he knows that Maria Hill died because of his failures, and he's decided to come clean with the mother, being like, she died in Moscow, and people wanted to hurt me, so they hurt her. And she was helping me. She's like, make sure her death means something, and that it wasn't in vain. And he's like, yep. And this is Fury of you don't really see him contrite much, of being brought to heel. Even later in the episode, where you would think he would act contrite to any kind of thing, and then it just going further. He doesn't. Here, he knows how to handle his different kind of situations. And it was interesting to see all this stuff. He's gotten this bombshell, and then he has to deliver this news to Maria Hill's mother. Let's see here. So, we then shift, and we get a better look at Rhodey. And stuff starts to feel off here. We see that, well, is it here? We see, let's see. Yeah, okay, let's first get to other kind of things. We see that Gravik is then being brought to meet with the council and everything like that. We see all these different kind of places condemning the bombing and everything, and painting the U.S. as the ones responsible for it. We see various kind of different news stations and all that, and we see that when Gravik goes in, he's followed by Gaia, and he's like, nope, she doesn't come. The guard's like, she doesn't come in, and he gives his gun to her, and he's like, if I'm not in an hour, shoot him in the head. And then she's like, oh shit. And then we get an important scene detailing who the Skrull Council is, and it's pretty much every kind of important kind of figure. UK Prime Minister, Secretary General of the UN, the pretty much Fox News analog newscaster that was pretty much talking about it as a false flag, and some other dude, and this woman who we link up with Talos later, Shirley Sagar, and they're talking about, well, we got to figure out what to do with you because you've made a whole mess of things. All right, what's the punishment that we're going to have for you? And he's talking about how they're acting like humans and everything like that, and it's like better than acting like a dog. It's like, I quite like dogs, and talking about how they should take the planet because it should be theirs because humans are going to destroy themselves, and who cares if he just hastens the inevitable. It's like, shit, the promises haven't been kept, and he's decided to go on and do his thing. He's got a million Skrulls. We see that the UK Prime Minister woman is backing his play to have him upgraded to Skrull General, and to pretty much go to war and do this kind of thing even more so. And we see that most of them, except for the Shirley woman, goes along with it. And of course, she also brought up, what happens if this like calls the attention of the Avengers? He's like, I got plans for that. And we kind of see later that, at least from what we're seeing, we could potentially be having Skrull infiltrators already within certain kind of former Avengers members, because the Avengers are kind of broken up at this moment and will reform mainly in the movies that we get later on. But it's like, shit, he's thinking about this. We'll have to see how this kind of works out, because they wouldn't be too prominent, but they would be prominent enough to do certain kind of stuff. So we see that he lets the Shirley woman go because she's like, the reason we were pretty much decimated is because we were too willing to go to war. And evidently this Skrull Council has been like trying to keep everything stable, which is very kind of interesting. It's like, wow, they're in very high positions of power and pretty much trying to keep a kind of checks and balance stability thing going on. It's like, what are their objectives? What's everything going on? It introduces a lot of kind of crazy shit. But she goes, she gets in contact with Talos. He understands what's going on and wants to have a meeting, and that he wants her to set it up, even though she's pretty much like, I just got out of there and he didn't kill me, so I'd be like, what? So this then leads them to, especially like the UK Prime Minister and the rest, pretty much bringing in the United States to call to task. And an interesting thing is, Gravik also pretty much utilized force on the UN Secretary General to pretty much get him to do what he wanted, and it was pretty much him and the Shirley woman that were like not on this, but then he of course acquiesced and bowed to Gravik as the Skrull General. So we'll see what kind of goes on with that and how this escalates certain things, because we then get more information as the episode goes on. It's like, oh shit, this is going to go nutty. So we see that Rhodes goes to pretty much answer questions, but he's very different than the Rhodey, not Rhodes, Rhodey has been tasked with James, sorry, I don't know why I go Rhodes. James Rhodes. Rhodey, he's, I'm kind of all over the place a little bit, but Rhodey is called, and they're like, why isn't the president here? He's running the most power, like, he goes into, like, interestingly, military kind of U.S. talking points. He's like running the most powerful military and country in the entire world. He shouldn't be called to task for this. This is my kind of thing. And he's getting very agitated and angry at things that we've not seen Rhodey act like this way before. And granted, he's not really a political kind of animal in this kind of sense, so it would just be kind of off-putting for him, but he acts in certain ways that we haven't seen him act in the movies. Granted, there can be differences of writing styles and everything for what they're trying to accomplish for him, but it really kind of throws things off. And then we see that Nick Fury calls and wants to kind of talk to him, and then they have their meeting, and Rhodes is like, what the fuck's going on, man? I gotta bring you in. I mean, you're implicated in this shit. Because he tried to downplay it. He's like, oh, allegedly and everything like that. And Fury's like, the Skrulls, shapeshifters, how well do you trust your guard and everything? Like, yeah, I got, 15 years ago, eyes only kind of thing on it. What's the big deal? It's like, what? He's just playing this off. It's like, And then, we see that Fury's like, we have to do something like this. We've had to work harder. And he's trying to, it's interesting because he then starts trying to play off of like, okay, we both had to work through horrendous shit to get to the positions that we're in and to get mediocre men out of power and everything. And Rhodey's not having any of it. And it's interesting because Fury name dropped Alexander Pierce and all that. And Rhodes was the one that brought up Hydra at a certain point before he's like, nah, Skrulls. And then he's like, nope, we're taking you back and pretty much putting you out of this. You're out of the game, Fury. It's like, then they won him out of the game. And just how combative he was and kind of just different. It's like, I think they got to Rhodey. And he also calls him Nick, which most people call him Fury. Like, we'll have to see how that kind of plays out. And Fury is able to get past his guard and utilizing some of his skills to get out, but then he's very kind of like tired afterwards, like, ah, shit, what the fuck's going on here? Let's see. So then we kind of get a thing that works along two fronts, because the Brogan dude, which was the dude that is pretty much being the sacrificial pawn for the Americas against Russia thing, is captured, and we see that Sonya has decided to interrogate this one herself, which just leads to some interesting kind of stuff. This also lines up with Gaia, and I'm going to do the Gaia bit first because it leads to some very important developments and a very interesting kind of change up of certain kind of Marvel lore, mainly because the Fantastic Four had not been introduced yet, but that's not stopping them from changing bits up for what's going on. So, let's do Gaia's bit first. Gaia does see Gravik come back in and trying to kind of figure out kind of what's going on as someone else is sent off to, like, his right-hand man sent off to check on certain kind of stuff. And she goes and kind of follows him and sneaks in, and we see that this Dalton woman and another scientist are trying to do stuff with this harvest, and they need this certain DNA for certain kind of things. It's like, what the fuck? And she's able to kind of get into the computer, and we see things of DNA for certain kind of superpowers, like Groot, the Frost Beast, Cull Obsidian, and Extremis. This is linking up the Super Skrull. And Clerkt, I believe. I don't know how to pronounce it. But he's the first Super Skrull based upon the powers of the Fantastic Four, having Human Torch, Invisible Woman, The Thing, and Mr. Fantastic's all powers rolled into one being. This is important because his abilities to be able to do that leads to the Secret Invasion kind of stuff, where other Skrulls are implanted with superhero powers to make them more passable, but also harder hitting kind of agents to actually utilize these powers in an invasion scenario. So them being able to do these kind of things and utilize these same kind of powers, like Groot's stretch kind of stuff, Cull Obsidian's kind of telekinesis and kind of invisibility kind of powers, Extremis of course fire, Frost Beast is probably the kind of stuff that would be close enough analog wise to the Thing. It's like, oh shit, he's trying to do this kind of shit. That's important because nobody knows that, and it's kind of brought up as for the interrogation, because then we see up with Sonya as she goes in and she's like, okay, I know he's here, please let me in, pretty much. And this dude's like, ah, shit. So she just walks in. Like, she's an asshole character, but she's an interesting character that I like because of how she's able to get her way through certain things, and the actress just fucking works it. And then we get this one dude who's the kind of head interrogator for the Russians, and he just plays it very well. He gets not a lot to do, but he's able to act through it in his mannerisms. So she's like, oh, go on, please, just leave me be. Where's the escape hatch? Right there. Oh, okay. So she locks up, and she's like, all right, we can do this the easy way or the other way. He's like, I'm telling you nothing. And then she just cuts off his finger and sees it turn into a scroll. Like, all right, cool. Now that I know that. And she's like, listen, I got this thing that's going to pretty much boil your blood in your body. You going to tell me stuff or you're not? And she's like, you can put that in my arm. I don't give a crap. Then she just sticks it in his ass because we'll see how that kind of goes. And she's like, listen, you're going to tell me stuff no matter what now. Just kind of go for it. She's like, where's Gravik? Where can I find him? Tell me other stuff. And he's not able to tell her where Gravik is or anything, but he lets slip of Dalton and everything going on with that, trying to enhance and make them stronger. It's like, oh shit. This, of course, is along the point where Gravik and his right-hand man pop in and shows pretty much the deadliness of their skills, taking out the Russians and just laying havoc. It's like, damn. It was a pretty well executed one because it shows the threat level that Gravik and his right-hand man pose. They take these guys out easily. And then, of course, Sonya goes through at the escape hatch and just boop, 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 boop. And guys like, what the fuck? Seeing kind of what's going on. And then we see that Gravik and the rest get the dude out, and he asks him if he told him anything. He's like, I told him nothing. And then they're driving by, and Gravik's like, nah, I don't think so. So he pretty much tasks his right-hand man with taking him out in the woods and kills him. And guy's like, what the fuck? And then the end of the episode, we see that Fury is checking in with someone, and we see that they're a Skrull. And then he comes in, and she's in the form of a woman. And then we learn that this is Fury's wife. Now, when I watched it, I thought that Fury knew this, but I don't know. We'll have to see as it goes on. I'm like, oh, he's married to a Skrull. It's like, I don't know if he knows it or doesn't know it. And it's interesting that Fury's married and what that kind of relationship looks like and how that kind of dynamic works. And if he doesn't know she's a Skrull, that's going to be some interesting kind of shit going on. So we'll see how that kind of falls out. This is bigger than we've thought. They're definitely laying some groundwork to question if Rhodes has been turned into a Skrull, like, and is a Skrull agent at this point. I believe for the purposes of most of, like, the Infinity Saga, that's those, like, those are those characters. Here, it's at some point before Secret Invasion mainly goes on that this has happened. So we'll have to see, because Rhodey was not acting like he usually does. And we'll have to see how that works out. Because Ross acted enough mannerism-wise to what we've known that it would have been harder to kind of tell. Here it's like, let's kind of see how this works out. There's a lot of possibilities. We'll see what happens with this and how the kind of fallout works. Fury is on the back foot. He really needs to figure out what's going on, especially if Super Skrulls get started into play and other forces start going down. He's still, like, there's still enough time. We're only, like, in episode 2. We've got 4 episodes left, and I'm intrigued to see what's going on and what more things we'll learn about Fury and how he'll combat this threat and what allies will get pulled in to this fight. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.